Okay. We'll call this meeting to order. Welcome. Today is June 6th, 2023. Welcome to the Town of Woodfin Planning Board of Adjustment, the first meeting with our new board. Call this meeting to order, and the first thing we're going to do is have all the new board members sworn in by the mayor, please.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate all of you willing to serve. Hopefully it won't be marathon session. If that's the case, that's just the way it is. So, you've got in front of you the oath of office. And what we'll do is give everybody one time, save some time. And if you notice on the first line, it says I, and then where normally you pronounce your name individually, we'll just all do it in unison. And then I'll do a few words, and you can repeat those, and we'll have it that way. So if you all are ready, if you want to, well, let's see. Need another Bible, I guess.
Well, I think what you can do is come, and one person can put their hand, well, you don't have to put your hand on the Bible, but if you'd like to, you can, but you can just swear or affirm.
Okay. You want us standing or sitting, or?
Stand there.
Presence of
And if you'll repeat after me, I, and pronounce your name,
I, Michael Bennett,
do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will support the Constitution and laws
that I will support the Constitution and laws
of the United States,
of the United States,
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
which are or may be established
which are or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor to support,
that I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend
maintain, and defend
the Constitution and laws of said state,
the Constitution and laws of said state,
not inconsistent with
not inconsistent with
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and abilities,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of my office
of my office
as Planning Board of Adjustment member
as Planning Board of Adjustment member
for the town of Woodfin,
for the town of Woodfin.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, you're official now.
Thank you.
And if you'll, yes, hold those, because if you signed it, because I have to sign it also.
You want us to put our name in up here at the top?
Yeah.
That too.
Thank you.
We're good to go? Okay, at this time, I'd like to take roll of the board. Ms. Gosnell?
Here.
Mr. Deroni?
Here.
Mr. Hopkins?
Here.
Ms. Overbeck?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Here.
Mr. Hanson? Not here. And Mr. Bennett here. And I guess our next step would be the approval of the agenda. That's minutes. Let's see how I got lost here. I guess the agenda for tonight.
Just, yeah.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
A motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, everyone in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Okay, motion approved, against? Okay, motion is approved, unanimous. The next thing we'll do will be approve the minutes from May 2nd, 2023. And everybody have a chance to take a look at them? Do we have any questions on those minutes? Okay, do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
The motion to approve the minutes?
Second?
I second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved, the motion is approved. Now we're going to do the review and adoption of rules and procedure, nomination and appointment of a chairperson. Do we have anyone that would like to make a nomination, appointment of a chairperson?
I would adopt the rules first.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, that's why I was trying
Okay.
to explain that before, it was a little confusing. So yeah, I would recommend adopting the rules first, and then you'll have rules that kind of tell you that you need to adopt or appoint a chair.
Okay.
And just to keep in mind, I don't know if anybody thoroughly looked at those rules and had a lot of questions, but this is a little bit of a different structure, this merged planning board of adjustment. So we may continue to study those rules, and we may make some adjustments in the future. So this isn't, necessarily the final product, but we wanted to give you something to get started with.
And are those rules that the town council has to adjust, or the board itself can adjust?
They're your rules,
Oh,
so
okay.
you adopt
So
them,
we can.
and if we make changes, then they just come before you.
Okay.
Okay. So then, do we have any
They look fine to me. I didn't-
questions on the rules? I looked.
I don't have questions.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the rules of procedure?
I motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Glenda? All in favor? Aye. So that is approved. So the next order of business then be a nomination for appointment for chairperson.
I would
Nominate Michael Bennett.
second if it needs a second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
That is approved. So now we have a nomination for appointment of vice chairman. So do we have a nomination for vice chairman? Vice chairperson? And I'm allowed to make motions, or do you have a motion?
I was going to nominate Scott Hansen.
Okay,
for
I'll
vice
second
chair.
that one. I'm allowed to second things, right? Okay, I'll second that one. Any questions on Scott?
Scott who sat next to me.
Yes.
Yeah. No,
Scott's
it's
not
good. It's
here,
good.
but we're kind of assuming that he would be okay with the appointment because he was the vice chair of Board of Adjustments. So
He's good with it.
he is good with it, okay.
Okay.
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that takes care of that. Public comment. Okay, so everyone wishing. Okay, good.
Quiet down now.
Okay.
So whatever, and I'll talk at once.
There was one person here.
I think it's coming back in.
Not everybody signed up for public comment.
Okay, good. Then we'll open and we will close public comment. Unfinished business, we have none for tonight. New business, under legislative, which would be the planning board, is that correct? If I got this, understood this correctly?
Legislative is planning board.
Okay, so we have no new business for the planning board. So
Just in, hot off the press, is there?
do I have someone that wants to talk?
Miles, you're here as the applicant, correct?
Yeah, on behalf of the applicant.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's for the
Yeah,
case.
that's for the case. So we're done now with the legislative items, so it's the planning board items. So our alternates may be excused. You're welcome to stay. Kenny, you're our only alternate tonight. You're welcome to stay, but you can't vote on the item. But if you want to stay and kind of hear the proceedings, so that when the day comes that you are called, kind of know what's going on.
Yeah, I'll say.
Okay, good.
So Shannon, Brian was asking me at the last training, he was wondering if the alternates, if they're, like in this case, would they sit down just so that,
I think it would be helpful, so do you mind relocating to the gallery?
Yeah, no problem.
Just so there isn't confusion as to who is the
Yeah.
board.
yeah, I think it just helps, like for Brian said, that way the applicants know who to address and who's asking questions and.
And I think because I asked that question because I didn't know if they were allowed to discuss the issue at hand, and apparently not technically, because they're not on the board, the only people on the board.
Because if we were to go to appeal, we want to make sure that it was, who was the five that were actually voting.
So, do you need a chair and vice chair for board adjustment? No. It's one board.
Well, I'm just thinking, did we just, is our vice chair an alternate?
He is, but if.
So if I
but
wasn't-
if Michael wasn't here, then we need an alternate anyway. So it's okay for him to be.
So it kind of works out.
It just threw me off when
Yeah.
we got to this thing.
Yeah, and we we'll always have the 7, which will be acting on legislative items. So if for some reason we only had 6 and Scott's here and you're out, Michael, then Scott would fill in, right, Shannon? Because we always will have 7 people voting on the legislative items, administratives, correct?
The only issue it has, if I was not here and Scott was not here,
Which could happen in any situation.
it could happen,
regardless
yes.
of who you're-
Then I guess somebody else would fill in for the night.
Yeah, but we run that risk no matter who is the vice chair. We're always running a chance that 2 people are out. Could happen.
So that brings us to
Our,
our evidentiary public hearing, which is, can I read this part of it?
yeah,
Okay, is Josh Mitchell, a property owner, is requesting a variance to the rear setback standard found in section 54-147C of the Town of Woodfin Code of Ordinances for the property located at 11 Norman Austin Drive, identified in the Buncombe County Tax Record as PIN 9730-72-6124.
thank you, Chair. So like, as we said, so we've moved into that quasi judicial, so yeah, we have the 5 members. And I think most of y'all are aware that, like you said, that in the training, that you're not supposed to talk about this case prior to the meeting. We can't talk to y'all about it until we get to this hearing, which might be confusing to, if you've been on planning board and you're used to be able to converse about anything with anyone at any time. And we'll try to make sure we have notes or we'll qualify, and I think that's what me and Marie done. Marie done a good job of having a second bullet point on the evidentiary hearings. We'll always have them broken out, so you'll have the legislative in one place and the evidentiary at the other. It won't flow back and forth, it'll just be a block. So no matter what order they come in, we'll make sure to keep them at the bottom of the agenda, just to kind of keep it neat and clean for y'all.
And Ricky, before you get started,
Yeah.
we need to swear in anybody who's going to speak
Oh, yeah.
during this one.
Yeah, that's right.
So Miles, Ricky, if you want to approach, and if you like, you can place your hand on the bottom.
Do you have your
Bible, or
standard
just
swearing
raise
statement?
your right hand.
Oh, I don't have that.
It's just you swear or affirm.
Okay. Can you repeat?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth?
Okay, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get you that full script. I got one right there.
There's
Add
another
that
way to
too.
say that, it's like, do you swear that the evidence you're about to give is.
It's probably in this packet from Brian. Yeah.
All right.
Well, I didn't know I was supposed to put that or not.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Chair, here. So again, this one is located at 11 Norman Austin Drive, which is just off of Elkwood Avenue, just east of here. It's for an existing structure that's a detached garage on its own individual lot. So again, it's zoned R7, and so the setbacks are 20 in the front, which is the south-facing direction here, Norman Austin Drive, that's south, that's the front. Left or west and right or east is a side, which is 10 feet. The rear setback is 20% of the average lot depth, or 30 feet, whichever is less. So based on the survey plan provided, that's about 13 feet, 6 inches is the required rear setback. Hence the request of a reduction down to 11 foot 1 inch at the most. We'll get down to the site plan. So the parcel highlighted in blue here is the subject tract. It is actually just a 1-story garage. It was originally part of the tract to the east or right here. At one point, we're not really sure, it was subdivided off. In practice, you do not subdivide detached accessory structures onto a separate parcel without a principal building. So you got to have a house. It's got to be accessory to something or subordinate. In this case, it is not. So this created a violation of the zoning code, so to speak. We kind of discovered that with this inquiry to actually construct the addition or the inquiry to add a second story to the building. So here's the petitioner's site plan. Again, the left half here is the garage. It shows the house. You see, it's kind of hard, but you see the very top of the screen here. You see the garage building with the 3 doors across the front or the bottom, and then the back wall is actually about 18 to about 23 inches into that rear setback. And this line is 13.6. I'll just try to explain for y'all. That is this is the subject property here. Let me know, Glenn, if I need to come over there. That's a 13.6 here, 10, 10, and then 20. Here's some elevations they provided just to show what the proposed addition would look like. If the board were to choose to approve this, by conversion of the structure from accessory to a principal use as a residential, that would correct that one zoning violation. The only problem is that we have that setback. Non-conforming section does not allow for additions. So additions could be a horizontal addition, sideways, and vertical. So that's encapsulating more of the required setback area, hence the requirement for a variance by the board.
Excuse me, Ricky, this would not be considered a pre-existing non-conforming lot?
It is a nonconformity. The structure is nonconforming. We would issue a permit for them to convert the garage to a house. So if all they want to do was renovate that structure into a house, we could do that. But because they're going vertically up, that's additional encroachment into that setback because they're adding a second story. So from a volume perspective, they're in it, and then they're actually going upward, and that's still another 13 to 23 inches.
I'm sorry, I'd like to add more to that, but I didn't swear myself in, so.
Oh.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, but nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So the town's code and most zoning codes do not allow you to expand a nonconformity. So
Okay.
because that portion of the structure is in that rear setback, you cannot increase it. So now, like Ricky was saying, if it's an existing nonconformity, if they were going to just renovate the one story, no problem, it's an existing lawfully established nonconforming structure. But if they were to rebuild that wall so that it further encroached into the setback, you would need a variance.
Okay.
If you're going up vertically, you're effectively expanding the nonconformity. You're expanding the volume of that encroachment, so therefore a variance is needed.
Thank you.
Even though it's the same wall on
Yeah.
top of the,
Yeah, now oftentimes if you read the staff report, the findings will oftentimes describe, like, it's difficult to do an addition when you can't rely on that wall. Like, it may be feasible, there may be a way to do it, but standard construction practices would have you expand your wall on that. So that's part of that's the existing condition, that's the hardship. The hardship is that the existing wall is already in the setback. So in order to practically add a second story, you have to use that existing wall. So that is the substance of the variance, is that they don't have another good alternative.
And if
Because how many square feet is this little garage total? I mean, it's a rectangle, right? So what's the,
probably about a 40 by 20, somewhere around there, or 25.
yeah, so this is really small. So, adding an addition is almost a requirement if it's going to be a home, right? This is a garage at this point, a one-story garage.
So if we grant a variance, and I'm asking Ricky and Shannon because it's a technical question here, does it include a distance from the line, or just a variance that says you can go closer to the line? The reason I ask is because does the roof line count as far as the distance from the property line, or we go to the wall? I want to make sure we're clear if we do this, get it right the first time. I don't want him to build a wall and say the roof has to stop there. I mean, because you have an overhang.
Yeah.
Gives you permission to
It's
continue building within that encroachment.
Yeah,
Or-
what you are granting is what's shown. So, I think the town's code allows overhangs to encroach.
Yeah, it does allow overhangs, but.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a permissible encroachment.
So in this case, like I said, this one, they're actually requesting it to the wall, but they're showing us that, 12, 18-inch eave. If they were wanting something much larger, then they would have to show it on the plan. And we require that they specify what the variance is requested for. So it's not just a blank check. It's like literally, you got to tell us, you need 23 inches. That's what we need the site plan for. That's what we said. We need a survey for a variance. We need to know exactly what you need to present to the board. Very prescriptive in what you grant.
Okay, it's 27 plus feet from the back right corner of the garage to the building, that's behind it, correct? As I read it.
No, on the site plan, it's approximately, that back right is 11 foot 1 inch at the closest.
To the house behind it?
Oh, no, we're looking at the line to the north.
Yeah, the north.
The rear setback from the
Okay.
building.
Yeah, see,
Right.
see where the building kind of is over that
Yeah.
line? That's the bit that
Okay.
doesn't comply.
Could you, let me ask this, just ask this as a technical question, could you move the property line closer to the house, the other house, on lot 15, and make everything kosher as far as,
I'll step over here. He actually explained that to me too. So this is the corner we're talking about, so
Yeah.
11 foot 1 inch right in here. The code is unique because we don't have a specified 15-foot rear setback. It's 20% of the average lot depth. So every time they move this rear line north, you're only gaining, the setback also increases because it's 20% of the average lot depth. So if it's a 100-foot deep lot, it's a 20-foot. If it's 120 feet deep, it's 24-foot deep. And you keep playing this math game until
Okay.
you get to 150, and then it caps out at 30. The problem is we have another duplex to the north, and I have some pictures for you. He owns the property,
Yeah.
and he plays that game. He winds up running into the side setback for the duplex, and he still cannot get the rear setback for this building to work. So there's it's a little bit of a Jenga puzzle, and they can't, because we talked about that. So I
And you
should-
can't create another nonconformity, with a plan. Like, you couldn't move a property line and then create another problem for another property. So-
could you move the property line where you got 10 feet on that setback for unit 15, but you still only have the one non-conforming lot?
It could, but it would still necessitate the variance, and he explored it. It wasn't many feet there, honestly.
Yeah.
So talking to Mr. Mitchell, yeah, he evaluated that first. We asked people to look at every solution first before they come before this board, because it's not because you're basically legally breaking the law. You're asking for the exception here. It could be that he didn't own the property, it just coincidentally worked out that he did. And so he had to survey evaluate that. And it just was not, it still would either create two problems trying to solve one.
Okay. That answers my question.
So we'll finish moving through here. So here's the street view looking, that's the older photo from 2012, but this is looking straight on at the garage. Not much has changed. So in that prior site plan, the house to the right, that's the white house to the right. Totally unrelated property owner, not connected, it's been sold. So I took this picture actually about 2 hours ago. So this is the rear of the garage, and so you're looking at the backyard, and that duplex is to the left. You see the 2 power meters. So that, just for reference, the height of the building here, that back wall is about 5 feet tall. So it's kind of built into the hillside a little bit. So when I stood at the gutter is about right here on my face, just to give you perspective. And then, of course, you see the duplex to the left.
That's silly not having a second story.
I know, yeah. What do we risk by approving this variance? I mean, are we going to be flooded with people making requests of non-conform?
Every application is reviewed uniquely and individually, so you don't really create a precedent, and you establish, if this is approved, it's approved establishing certain findings, like the applicant didn't have another option, it was, any other, trying to move the property line would create another nonconformity, so that might not be the case in another situation, so we would evaluate those circumstances.
Well, since the comprehensive plan that exists even right now promotes infill development, would this be that?
So one of the findings is that it's consistent with the spirit and purpose of our code and ordinances. So variances, you have to substantiate all four findings, and these are statutorily established findings. So that's one of them. You just
Right.
basically stated the reason how or why this supports that particular finding. Another is that the applicant isn't responsible for what's not conforming. They're not. They didn't
Right,
build the
no.
structure. They didn't create the property lines. They didn't. Another is that there is that there's something unique about the property that doesn't apply to other properties.
I'll put them
And
up there
again,
for you,
it's
Sam.
an existing non-conforming structure, and it's so Ricky's property. The hardships are peculiar to the property, results from conditions that are, they mean peculiar, they mean unique. Like, what's unique about this property that might not apply in other properties? And then the hardships are not taken from actions by the applicant, which we talked about. The variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent. And that the first one, unnecessary hardship would result in the strict application of the regulation. So they're saying there that they don't really have a good alternative. That's what that first one is about. So if they did have all kinds of room to the side of that duplex and they could move the property line, you wouldn't be able to satisfy that first one. Now, all variance applications require a pre-application conference. So Ricky would sit down with any potential applicant and try to explore all that. So by the time it reaches you, that should have been vetted. Now, in a blue moon, you'll get somebody who says, well, yeah, I can do that, but I just don't want to. So then staff will explain that and help point out the fact that, we're not sure that that first finding is satisfied, but that's not the case. Yes.
So the only other alternative is really to probably tear the garage down and start from scratch and move the structure. That would be one. Or two, adjust the second floor on the existing structure in some way, shape, or form to conform, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, they wouldn't let them build, they wouldn't give them a building permit, construction permit because it doesn't meet the standard, right? Even though the second floor might meet the standard, but the first floor does not, so they have to get this variance either way.
Well, the first floor is fine. It's an existing condition. So
Okay.
it's fine, it's grandfathered.
Okay.
It's just the expansion that's the problem. So yeah, you are correct. Those would be the two obvious alternatives, but it is not necessary, in order to get a variance, it's not necessary to go to the extreme, which is to demolish a structure and rebuild it. So,
Or even move it, because that would be financially an issue as well,
yeah.
having been a previous
Well,
builder.
Financial, so this is really important, that, financial considerations are not part of the board's purview. You're looking at what is physically unique about this property.
Right.
And in this case, I think what's physically unique is that you have an existing structure that's already non-conforming. They're seeking to do an expansion up vertically, and because of the location of the existing walls, that's the most practical option. You will occasionally see builders, just to avoid issues like that, having to get a variance, they might figure out a way to do it, but that's uncommon.
I'm assuming there was a notice posted out so
Yes.
people would know that there was
Yes.
something going on.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that if there was issues, if somebody was opposed to it, they would be here.
You would hope so, yeah. And Glenda, to your comment about, well, what's the hardship, or what's the harm, I guess, in granting a variance? there are property owners who might feel like, my building is so close to the property line, and if you go up, it's gonna affect me somehow negatively. So you would, typically in a situation like that, you would hear from those individuals. And you just have to kind of weigh,
Well, it looked like there wasn't any windows on that end of the structure either, so
Yeah.
it shouldn't be an issue even for 15, I wouldn't think, but that's, okay.
Yeah, yeah, and like in the pre-application meeting, like we talked about solar access, and like having a shed roof would be one thing that we'd be looking at, because there's light and air and things like that blocking somebody. So it's something that we may talk to somebody to have consideration. So that appears to be one of the thoughts in this design, because that high side faces south and the shed drops to the north. So, whereas you have a hip or gable roof, that may block something a little bit more. But, I'm not a solar access guru, but I'm saying that was just things that we in a conversation, we try to talk to people about, thinking of solutions.
And because of permits that would be required that wouldn't be granted, it can't be turned into a short-term rental when it's built, right?
That is correct. It cannot be.
And they know that. I mean,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. Actually, I think initially, early on, this was an application for a short-term rental, actually at this location, and when I was wanting to convert. And so in working through the process, I think me and Marie, we double-checked, and he affirmed and said, yes, I am not doing a short-term rental. So he basically revoked that request before we got to the hearing tonight, so.
If the owner's moving into that as a permanent residence, what about the unit that he's moving from? Is that gonna be a short-term rental, or?
Cannot be.
Cannot be.
Yeah, the ship has sailed on new short-term rentals in this town.
I'm not in favor of.
So I'll get back down here to.
And these are all good questions, they're general questions, but, just to clarify, whether they intend to use it for a short-term rental or not wouldn't be
I know.
anything we would
Understand.
consider as part of this discussion.
With the structure going up like 12 or 13 feet, is it gonna impact anyone else around it, really?
And it actually isn't, it's relevant only peripherally as it relates to that last finding, which is the spirit and purpose of the code. But one argument regarding spirit and purpose of the code for setbacks is that it's to help, provide air and light and to give space so people don't feel overly crowded. But really what you're looking at is what is unique about that particular property, not like what everybody else's, around them might be experiencing.
So even if there were other variances there in the area, we shouldn't be worried about that or think about that?
No, or even if somebody showed up and said, this is gonna block my view of, the river, and so I want you to deny it. That's not really the kind of thing, because that's not really demonstrating that they don't meet those findings.
Okay.
Yeah. And it meets the height standard, so we're only talking about the rear setback. So 35 feet is the height limit for the district, and this building is not anywhere near that height limit. So,
Probably about, 20 maybe?
yeah, that's what it appeared to be, about 20, and that was on the front. And so last photo here is on the east side looking north. So just so you can see kind of this other house to the right we was talking about, used to be part of this property. We did receive a call from that neighbor, just kind of what you said, like what maybe impact they would have. They weren't sure if they'd make it tonight or not, but we went over the packet. That was contation, just so we know that. That's the only door that I could find on the house to the right is facing here, but that's just a unique orientation of the house. We can't control how houses face in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Pretty much you can have multiple doors most places, but where you come in out is what it is. So that again, this is the last picture I got, and then I did include the findings here for you. I know we do have the property owner's representative. Unfortunately, the property owner is out of state right now, and so Miles Alexander is an architect in town, but also I think is a friend of his, so that's why he's here. Is that correct, Miles?
That is correct.
So,
Unless he owes somebody money, then I guess.
so if you have any other questions for me, I'll be glad to answer those, or Shannon's here too. I'll sit down and let Miles answer any questions. Miles, do you want to, it's less sunny here. Yeah, if you want to come up here. No, come up here.
Move over there if possible.
Yeah, please. Yeah, come over here so we can get you on
So you can see.
Yeah, it'll take me a second for my house to adjust.
Shannon, can I ask him to state his name and address for record?
Yeah.
Can you please state your name and address? for record?
Miles Alexander, 31 Gray River Run, Nashville, North Carolina, 28804.
Thank you.
Yeah, so again, thanks for reviewing it. One of the things that was mentioned was moving the property line, and that was one of the first things Josh and I worked through. The rear property line would need to move back 8.5 feet for the math to work. Again, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio, so ran the math, and the distance between obviously this structure and the next structure, moving it back would create a non-conforming addition or non-conforming condition to his primary residence now, which he does have a long-term rental on the other side of the duplex. And yes, his plan is to move into this permanently and then long-term rent the other side of that duplex. So that was the initial look. The second look was finding out that this was a non-conforming structure or non-conforming lot with the structure the way it was, and adding this second floor to it and this additional use would create a conforming use on the property. But what we were running up against is that trying to stack walls on top of each other, which is a traditional way of construction, was leading us to violating the rear setback for our addition. So the existing structure obviously is not big enough to meet the requirements of a single-family home in any type of practical standpoint. So rather than taking that northern wall and sliding it in and having it at a weird angle, or cutting it perpendicular and having to build some structural reinforcing that is not really conducive to maximizing the efficiency of the ground floor, we felt it was worth at this point to seek a variance so that we could bring the property back into zoning compliance from a use, but try to get the rear setback moved on the short side 11 or 13 inches to 20 some odd inches on the other end. So that's a short story for the property, and if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to ask.
Just a quick question, not that it matters, but out of curiosity, the bottom floor, is that going to be converted into household use, or is it going to be stay as a garage?
It'll stay as a garage. It'll be a wood shop and storage.
I think the current owner was told that it was grandfathered. Do you know who made that comment?
The structure itself is grandfathered in. Had he wanted to keep, had his intended use fit in that first floor, he would have been grandfathered in. Whether that use could be anything other than a single-family home, I'm not sure. That's a technical, like if we wanted to turn that into a wood shop, or if we wanted to keep it a garage and pull the building permit, that would be a discussion between the zoning people here. But yeah, that was from a pre-existing condition standpoint. That property, that structure exists and can be utilized as it exists, as long as it fits within the current four walls of it and fits within the zoning allowances.
Okay. Does any other board members have any questions?
I do not.
I don't. I do not. Does the board like to have further discussions on this thing, or do you think we're good to go?
I'm good with it.
Okay. I believe that if we pass this, it'll demonstrate that we do satisfy points A, B, C, and D. And so I'm just putting that out, so if someone would like to make a motion to include that. Ricky, or do we have?
So one thing I'd like to add, that if the board does move to approve the variance, that we'd like to have a condition that if for some reason this garage was demoed, because you never know with these old structures, they get there to do the work, if it for some reason were to be removed in its entirety, that any new structure rebuilt would still have to comply with the required full setback of 13.6. So
Yeah.
just that, because the whole premise for the variance request was for the existing structure. But if something happens and that gets demoed because it's unsuitable walls for some reason structurally, we just ask that that would then void the variance, and they just have to comply with the 13.6.
That would go in the written response, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be conditioned that if the existing structure is demoed, then this variance would be null and void, and they would have to meet the existing or the new structure.
Existing
Yeah.
code.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'd have to
So
recommend.
whoever would like to make a motion, we have to include that also.
I'd make the motion to approve the variance with the condition that the existing structure stay in place. And,
And you find that all,
okay, and we found that all 4 conditions per section 5477 have been met, A through D. Do we need to read those into the record? Okay.
I'll second.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Motion, or the variance is granted. Congratulations.
Thank you, Board. That's the last item we have. And as y'all seen, you 5 voted, but you need 4 out of 5. So just remember that simple majority don't get it on this one, but they got it.
Okay.
Thank you for the hard work on this one.
Yeah, well, Shannon always proofreads my stuff here, so she makes sure we get it.
This is good information, to really, to go through. Very helpful.
And so before we adjourn, so I think Stephanie would also back me up. So if anybody, especially people who have not been on the zoning board, so the new people, if you have not taken the class that Shannon has worked to us, make it able for us to get, we're suggesting you do get it because it was very helpful, because we do have an appeal coming up. And I don't know that everybody's going to be here because we don't have the date settled yet. So, I'm sorry, Kennedy, I apologize. It's strongly suggested if you could get that training, either online or in person, that would be great, because we found it helpful. I know both of us said if we had this before the last appeal, it would have been a little bit easier. And Brian did give us some, but you weren't here for that either.
Is this the School of Governance?
Yes.
Training?
Yes.
You're scheduled, right?
Yeah, I'm
I-
scheduled Thursday afternoon. Yeah.
Yeah, Shannon, the next time it's available, I'll certainly try to take it.
yeah, yeah, and these trainings come around almost pretty much every year. Sometimes even.
Only
a couple
once a
times
year, really?
Sometimes more than once a year. It depends on, like, if you're willing to travel, you can,
You mean to Raleigh?
yeah, I mean, but a lot of times they might be like in Hickory or someplace.
If we find a recorded one.
We'll be sure to share.
We find a recorded one too, Shannon. We can always, yeah, occasionally have a
Yeah,
recorded one.
That's a
if
good
the
idea.
recording is available afterward.
Yeah.
I mean, Brian, you were here for Brian's class, so it was very similar, and he was very helpful. This just kind of went a little more depth, and it was very good. Any other questions, concerns from the board to talk about anything else before we adjourn?
We still don't know the dates, right, of the appeal?
We do not. They are working on that right
Can you make a motion to adjourn?
But it's definitely July.
now. It does look like it'll not be June. I left it on your calendars until I get the word, just.
Is there a chance it'll be resolved?
I think there's a chance. The longer we put it off.
The longer.
I know.
And-
All right, do
Yeah.
I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second? Everyone in favor? Aye. Okay, this meeting's now closed. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
July 11th, the next